Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to my channel or coming back if you've been here before. I am your illustrious host. Maybe not the word. I am your host, Megan. I am the faithful fibromyalgia warrior. And I just it was on my heart to talk about what I do with regards to my fibromyalgia, my faith, what food I eat or don't, and also trying to find balance. So let me, I want to first start out by just simply sharing that yes, I do have fibromyalgia. Um, if you guys are watching this, maybe you don't have it. You know somebody who says they have it, but you don't quite know what it is or what it's all about. The short version, uh, as it was explained to me, is this. So fibro means soft tissues, and myalgia refers to widespread pain. And I believe that is from Latin. So it basically means you have widespread pain throughout your soft tissues. You can have it in the back of your neck, you can have it in your upper back, across your shoulders, it can be in your upper chest, you can have it in the front of your thighs, down your shins, you can have it down the back of your legs, by your hips, around your groin area, in your upper arms and in your forearms. Now, I can't say most people have it everywhere because I don't know. For myself personally, I experience that pain throughout all those areas to different degrees. And from what I have been told by a doctor when I was assessed is what it basically is, they don't know. What they think it is a autoimmune condition. However, it is based in the central nervous system, and for some reason, the brain is sending out signals that these soft tissues, these areas of your brain or of your body, are feeling pain in a given moment. They aren't quite sure what sets it off. When it happened to me, I was diagnosed with it December the 10th, 2015. And those sorts of things I can remember, okay? And it helps. My brain fog is cleared up. But basically, uh, what they told me after they absolutely ruled out rheumatoid arthritis, after they ruled out lupus and chronic fatigue, um, that was what was left. They did numerous blood tests, numerous markers, and all that kind of thing. And they ruled those other possible conditions out. So, what they say is that for some reason, the brain thinks that there's pain happening. Yeah, the brain is getting signals that those parts of your body are in pain. There's been some sort of damage or some sort of trauma. And even if the area starts to physically heal, your brain still sends out signals that those parts are in pain, even if that's not the case. Okay. It is not something that is made up. It is not something where we are imagining that we're injured. What it often means is if we have had an injury, we feel significantly more pain than somebody without fibromyalgia would. So it's like our brain becomes hypersensitive. And it is usually triggered by, they say it can be triggered because we have suffered some sort of a trauma, like maybe we were in a car accident or we, uh, injured ourselves playing sport, we tore tissue, we broke a bone, anything like that can potentially trigger it. And how it gets worse or not is individual. So some people might feel burning pain in their arms and in their legs, like their nerves are on fire. That is a common symptom. Um, Another common symptom is brain fog. And we feel like there's enough pain and tingling through our extremities and, upper back, lower back, every key area of our bodies that those of us who suffer with it to a greater amount of pain, feel as though we can't move, we can't do anything. And the more we try to move, the more pain we feel. And so, for that reason, often that means we no longer feel able to participate in physical activity. And of course, many of us already know that some sort of physical activity, whether we are gently going for a stroll, whether we are walking, whether we're riding our bikes, going swimming, anything like that, whether it is low intensity or high, uh, those things are often very good for our cardiovascular health as well as our mental health. And so when we can no longer participate because of the pain or the pain flaring up, um, depression is very common as a symptom as well. And I had practically every single symptom that goes with fibromyalgia that's listed. And there's over 20 symptoms listed. I had all of the main pressure points that were in pain. I had very limited mobility. There was constantly, so I was still working at the time, but I was unable to focus properly at work. And in 2015, I was also started on gabapentin, which is a nerve blocking medication, which is supposed to help with fibromyalgia pain in the arms and legs. I believe it's also prescribed for people who deal with seizures to calm the signals in the brain. And it works to a fairly good degree. I don't get muscle twitches and spasms anymore randomly. Um, I used to suffer with that at night. So my legs would be spasming. And because I also have that pain from the disc injury in my lower back, as well as lower back, just a history of injuries. So I have chronic ongoing pain. Um, I would almost be like, I would be maybe curled up on my side, and all of a sudden my muscles would spasm and all the way up my body. And I would, you know, I would suddenly jerk back and cause further pain to happen in my lower back. So the gabapentin did eventually help with that. I say all that because um, I want to just give those of you who maybe don't deal with fibromyalgia yourself directly, give you an understanding of what it's about, at least from what I've read, what I've been told, and what I've experienced myself. So I was told by my general practitioner, my GP, when I had been finally diagnosed back in 2015, that they really don't know very much about fibromyalgia. They used to think um, that it was simply something like a mind over matter. Now, they know that's not the case. They know the central nervous system is involved, but there are some who also consider this an autoimmune condition. One of the key symptoms of fibromyalgia is brain fog, feeling constantly cold, so you're unable to heat yourself or cool yourself down properly, which is also a sign of an underactive thyroid. And an underactive thyroid is fairly common with those of us who suffer with fibromyalgia. Um, Depression is not unusual. I dealt with depression long before I developed fibromyalgia. Now, looking back, I likely had fibromyalgia to a certain level long before my disc collapsed, bulged out in 2014. Okay, because I had a lot of difficulty standing for long periods of time. I found often that my back would ache quite quickly. So I wasn't able to do jobs, any kind of work where I had to stand up for the day. I could not do it because I would have lower back pain. And that was something that was always there. But I also have a long history of multiple injuries, like the normal things you get. Growing up in Canada, I had loads of wipeout ski. We go on family holidays skiing, and you fall at least once, and you get banged up a little, and bumps and bruises. Nothing, you know, horrific, but they happened every winter. I would fall over skating, or sledding, and you wipe out and you get that wear and tear going on the lower back. In 2008, I was standing on the top of the stairs in our old house, going out the side door. Now, part of those stairs went up to the kitchen, there was a landing, and then the rest went down into our finished basement. And I was standing on the landing, and I guess there was a bit of a puddle there that I didn't notice. And I was wearing hiking shoes, so I had solid treads, but I slipped, I wiped out, and I banged my way down all 15 steps on my butt. I ended up fracturing my tailbone. Like there was a dark, almost black bruise on my back. And later on, when I went in for a different injury, a few years later, I was told that the very tip of my tailbone was not there. It had actually broken off. I have fallen sledding when I was at university. I fell in such a way that I had my legs kind of tangled up underneath me as we went down the hill, and I tore the ligaments on the inside of my right knee. I was walking through a car park in an empty part of the car park, but somebody who was 2 rows over didn't check her rearview mirror, backed up at almost 40, close. She just hit the gas. So she got up to 40 miles an hour. She backed straight up to where I happened to be standing. Like she did not need, I was not standing right behind her. She backed up through 2 rows of cars, of like 2 spaces, 2 rows of parking stalls. And she took me out on the left side. She hit me on the outside of my left leg. So I had damage to my left knee. So I spent much time on crutches, and I decided to take up jogging when I was in university. Don't ask me why. I don't know what possessed me, but I did, and I developed a hairline stress fracture on the outside of my right ankle, and I was in a cast for 6 weeks. So that was fun, and on crutches. So I've had my fair share of pretty massive injuries over my younger days and when I was pregnant. So I would say 20 years ago when I was pregnant with my younger son, we were up on holiday. My husband and I were up at a resort uh, just north of us in Ontario, and we were walking our way in to check into our hotel, and they hadn't fully cleared the ice in the front entrance, and I slipped and fell and landed on my tailbone. Now, this was 5 years before I fractured it, but just to give you a bit of an idea. So that's why I say that the suspicion is that I had fibromyalgia before I was diagnosed with it, but it was the disc injury. Um, as I say, that was 9 years ago. Yeah, 9 years ago almost. It was that they figure was the trigger that made it as bad as it was, and why it still continues. They don't quite know why it's still affecting me. They think perhaps, and I've had some MRIs done, and I've been seen by the orthopedics team, and they've checked my MRIs, and they've said that my disc has retracted slightly, which means it is still bulged. However, it is not in danger at this point of touching the spinal nerves. So They don't have to go and perform surgery, but it's still bulged out enough that it is causing irritation to the spinal nerve, and also causing irritation to all the nerves and ligaments around it. So it's very close to the sacroiliac joint as well as the sacroiliac bone. So there's inflammation, there's irritation there. Right. So what have I learned from all of that? That's me with my history of injuries. And there's a few other times when I've sprained something, fractured something, broken something, if I go back far enough. But um, what I've come to realize is what most of us with fibromyalgia realize is that whatever has set it off, and again, they think that a traumatic physical injury is often what triggers it, but it can be caused by emotional trauma. It can be caused by stress and repeated movement injury. So when my disc bulged out, I asked what happened. They couldn't tell me. Now, I did not know this, okay? However, when I went to get a cortisol injection to try to help with the pain in my lower back, shortly after they confirmed that my disc had bulged out, they told me it was between the L4 and L5, which in most people, those are your bottom two vertebrae before your SI, before your sacroiliac and the joint therein and where you're attached to your pelvic bone. Okay. But what I found out, I went in for the injection. They had me leaning forward over this, I don't know, not like a stool, but you almost see these things in the gym where you kind of lean over the front, right? So that your back is arched. And the consultant, the specialist, had out an x-ray machine so he could see where to put in the cortisol injection, right? Because all they were trying to do was help manage the pain, see if it would reduce inflammation. And as he was looking, and of course, I've got what if they put medication in an IV into my arm. So the anesthesiologist has done local anesthetic instead of general. And as they're going through, as the specialist is lining up from the x-rays, from my MRI scan and the x-ray machine, he's lining up to figure out where to put in the injection. And he looks at me and he goes, Mrs. French, were you aware that you had an extra vertebra in your spine? I'm like, no. He goes, oh yeah, you're one of like the 10% of the population of the world that has an extra vertebrae. And I was like, oh, so what does that mean? It's like, well, that it probably was like that when you were in your mom's womb. So technically, what that means is you may have a little bit of extra flexibility in your lower back, which doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, but it means you are at a slightly higher risk of having another disc bulge. He's like, think of it like a link in a chain on like a watch with a chain wristband. You put in that little extra link, and all it means is there's just a little bit of extra movement, right, in the watch band. I'm like, oh, so does that mean I have some kind of superpowers? Do I get a cape or something? He's like, yeah, unfortunately, no, it doesn't mean that. So, anyways, all sorts of things I discovered. I had no idea that I had an extra vertebrae. And he told me that as he was looking, at my back, he said, this was the worst bulge that I was experiencing, but the chances were very high that I'd had other ones before, and they just didn't go out as far. This one happened to go out and stay out. Yay me, right? So between that and the fibro, they worked together, they gathered together, right, to cause pain and discomfort. Okay, so there's the fibromyalgia. Now, the thing I've had to learn is that Some things in life I will probably never get to do again, and I have to learn how to be okay with that. And when it first happened, it was surreal, right? Like, really? Really? This is a thing forever. Okay. That I might manage the pain, but it would still be with me if I'm not careful. And it was the weirdest thing because in the beginning, I was just in sharp, agonizing pain until I started the gabapentin, until they got me on sertraline, because I was, again, eating carbs and crap and not knowing that this was, in fact, harming me. Um, I was stuck in my own head. I was stuck in my own head. And I was going from one extreme to another, from my emotions were all over the place, as you could well imagine. I couldn't find any balance. I was either saying, screw it, I am eating whatever the hell I want and I don't care, or, oh wow, I've got to cut out everything. But I was doing it on my terms, right? I was doing it my way, which clearly wasn't working. And as I've shared in other lives and other videos, I knew God was out there and I didn't stop believing in him, but I did not allow that faith to guide me. It was in the back of my mind, like, oh, yeah, okay, God's out there. Let's try everything possible that, uh, doctors and specialists and other humans have recommended. But I'm going to forget about the most important thing, which was God. I I thought I could solve all my problems all by myself. Give me another pill, I'll be fine. Give me more medication, I'll be okay. I was struggling with the fact that I could not exercise in any traditional sense. I felt guilty. I was told specifically for at least 6 weeks to do no housework, no heavy lifting, no bending and twisting. And I felt hopeless and useless. It was enough that it was more than I could take, even just getting to work every day. And the constant stress of I'm in pain. I was having a difficult time getting from my desk down the hallway to the toilets. I was constantly needing to go to the bathroom. My IBS was out of control. I deal with a nervous bladder, so I was feeling stress at the job I was doing. We had data entry we had to get done by a certain time period, and I couldn't cope. I had to give up driving because the medication was affecting me. I could not do it. I would go to work worried every day, stressed out. Are my kids going to be okay at school? Am I going to get my job done correctly? Am I going to forget to do something? I had to start writing down when to take my medication. I had to put reminders in my phone throughout the day and count out the right pills because I would often forget or double dose, neither of which is good. And I was just feeling more and more lost. And I was feeling like my life had no balance and I was completely out of control. And my biggest fear at the time was, oh my gosh, if I take this medication, I might feel less pain, but it's probably going to make me put on weight. By that, obviously, I mean fat, right? And I was petrified. I had everything out of balance. I didn't know what to eat. I couldn't seem to lose weight. I was feeling stressed beyond belief. And I was realizing more and more every day, I could not work full time. I could not. The brain fog was horrible. I could not remember what things I had said or what things I had done. Even if I had a checklist, um, I would often go back and think, but didn't I do this? I mean, I checked it off, but I think I didn't do it. So why would I check it? Oh, I must have done it. Oh, well, actually, I know I didn't. And I would have to send reminders I would have to send myself reminders for reminders, right? I was a mess. And I know, yes, I was eating garbage. I was eating loads of junk food. I was eating crap all the time. And I was binging and purging, and I couldn't control myself. Um, I was purging through laxative use. I could not get down on my hands and knees and make myself throw up because I was in too much pain. I had to go to work with a TENS machine strapped to my back, and constantly replace the pads. And the TENS machine helped me briefly, right? But as soon as I took it off, the pain was right there and I was lost. And even at that point, my faith was still okay, God's out there and I know He loves me and this is going to get better. But that was the extent of it. And I suffered. Now, I am, believe it or not, I am thankful for the suffering because it helped bring me finally to a place of humility. I thought I had all the answers. I did not. I read a lot. I dug deep into medical research and I dug deep into other people's stories about what they did for their fibromyalgia. And, I tried everything that conventional medicine recommended. I took the medication. I tried hydrotherapy. I tried physiotherapy, and I tried going through occupational health and therapy. And yet, I felt no improvement. I felt no difference. And the first place I should have gone should have been God, but I didn't. I was relying on myself and I gave up at that point. I gave up hope. I thought, I'm going to have to just love myself as I am and just accept that I will probably put on weight and I will be left with brain fog and unbelievable pain forever. And anybody who tells me otherwise is trying to sell me something, is lying to me, and I don't want to hear it because they can't possibly understand my life. Now, this is probably still true, you know? Um, if I expect to find somebody who is a Christian and has a child with autism and another child with ADHD and is dealing with stress in life and trying to cope through depression and anxiety and an eating disorder and food addictions, well, I may not find somebody who fits all of those things. But I tell you what, when I finally got humble and I finally realized, wow, my way is not working. I need something else. I need something else. You know, I would have moments through my fibromyalgia where I felt better than I normally did. And that's when I would rush around and I would try to get everything done that I possibly could while I was feeling better, knowing that I was probably going to pay for it the next day. There's something we call rebound pain. And I don't know if that's specific just to fibromyalgia or if it is something that other people with chronic pain also feel. I would think it is not just me. But it's an amazing thing that when I finally got humble, wow, what a difference it can make. Today I was looking through in the book of Proverbs, if I may share a scripture with you, and verses 1 to 7. And it's talking about wisdom and listening to God. And I think that's all very important, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But one thing I did come to understand is that I needed to reevaluate what I was doing with my life. And this just really struck me. Okay. And it was in verse 7, it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew better than God. I knew better than everyone else and everyone who was an expert, and I was going to figure out my way through life and my pain, and that was it. I was going to start using CBD oil products. I might even find the edibles if we were somewhere where it was legal. Why not? And other than that, it didn't matter because I'd given up hope. But that's because I was putting my trust in the wrong things. Now, my trust, my faith, my hope is in God, is in the Father of Jesus Christ. Now, if your hope and faith is in something different, if it works for you, fantastic. Do that. Start somewhere. As they say in the 12-step rooms, the God of your understanding. So whether you choose to worship Mother Nature or the Nordic gods, or you believe in the sun and the earth, whatever it is, well, I guess that's Mother Nature. Whoever you believe in, if that is helping you at this point to realize there's something far greater than you out there, start there. That's what I had to understand, as I had to get humble and go, you know what? My way is not working because I am struggling. I am having a life that is out of control with stress and anxiety and depression. I thought that my days of bulimia were done. And yet, they were far worse after my injury. Now, God forced me to stop, as I say, make myself throwing up. But you know what? I was still finding other ways to purge. I was still binging. I was still purging. I was still feeling overwhelmed with guilt. I was still restricting. And my weight just over that period continued to climb. And as it turned out, when I finally got to see a doctor in 2019, my LDLs were very high, which most of us will know is not necessarily a bad thing, but my triglycerides were through the roof. I was already on the path of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because I was eating loads of fruit thinking this is healthy. And it wasn't. The fructose was literally working on its way to kill me because of how much I was eating on top of carbs and everything else and all the processed crap. 2020, COVID. Fibromyalgia is often considered an autoimmune condition, so I was under, restrictions. We were all under lockdown. And what happens for me when I am left to my own thoughts and God's not part of them? Everything happens. Negativity is rife. Anxiety over everything in the world takes over. Depression becomes insurmountable. And I am thankful that in 2020, yes, I felt justified because I finally had it confirmed that, in fact, yes, I do have an underactive thyroid. But I quickly came to see that, you know what, that didn't explain all of my weight gain. High levels of cortisol, adrenal fatigue. Why? I was always putting myself in fight or flight mode. When you have depression and you deal with generalized anxiety, that is your state of being. And I knew in my mind, even through the brain fog, I knew that ultimately I needed to rely on my faith with God. And I wasn't. I was so sure that I had the answers, and I didn't. And I'm not saying I have them all now. Again, whoever the God of your understanding is, if it's helping you come to grips with food and food addictions and trying to find recovery from an eating disorder, awesome. That's great. As I say, for me, my higher power is God. And I came to realize pretty quickly, especially in 2020, that I know nothing. And that I have been foolishly trying to do everything my way. And got me nowhere, got me sicker and fatter. It got me up to 200 pounds, at least, by the end of May of 2020. About a week before, I stopped weighing myself by the beginning of June because I was so ashamed and so embarrassed. But when I last weighed myself mid-May, I was 200 pounds. I was probably closer to 210 by the time I was ready to take a hold of my health, my pain, my brain fog, everything. And most importantly, finding my way back to God. I was not able to walk close to God and have that desire to put him first and to be connecting deeply while I was filled with brain fog. I knew God knew my heart. Okay. Bible says God knows our hearts, and he does. And he knew that I wanted to change. But he also knew that I was full of so much brain fog that I would need help to get there. I would need to get rid of the fog first. And so I absolutely believe God guided me towards keto, and from there, eventually, a carnivorous way of eating. And when I did that, oh my goodness, the brain fog lifted. It's crazy. We can find ourselves in really challenging situations and we don't want to be there, but we're afraid to leave because it becomes this very weird, strange, almost weird, yeah, sense of comfort. It's bad and we know we don't really want it, but we're also afraid to get out of it or to change it because as bad as it is, we're used to it, right? And we just accept it. And I think for me, that was a big part of it. There were things that happened back in 2003 and definitely some political things that went on with our old church where we reached a point and we said, you know what? We're not coming back. And so we left the church. We did not leave God. We never, I personally, I will only speak for myself here, but I never lost my faith. I never stopped believing in God and his power. But I definitely started to believe that I could figure things out for myself. And I started to rely on him a whole lot less. And the more I tried to fix things myself and control my life myself, the more out of control life became. And actually, I don't know if it's interesting, funny, weird, or coincidental or not, but that's a reality of an eating disorder as well. You go into it because something in life is beyond your control. For me, I felt like, my siblings were always popular and making friends easily and dating people, and I wasn't. I was the oldest of three. It didn't happen for me. I felt like if I was just thinner, I would find someone who would want to date me. And I did what most people did. I restricted and all this other craziness, but I felt like for me at that moment in time, my life was out of control. And the only way for me to have control was to control what I was eating or not eating. And the truth is, we eat whatever we choose. We are free to eat whatever we feel like. Processed oils, processed carbs and sugar, whole foods, meat, whatever it is. No one gets a say in what I eat. I get no say in what other people eat. And whatever you choose to eat is your choice. Whether you like to eat your meat raw or cooked or in between, that's your call. However, I was so concerned about having all the things the world said were important throughout my life that that is what moved me the most. Okay, even as a Christian, I found myself a lot of the time struggling in my early years to trust God's will. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but there it is. And so I think for a lot of reasons, that's probably why I struggled with bulimia for 35 years, even even when I became a Christian. I didn't. My thought was, well, if I don't acknowledge it's there, then it's not there. And I don't have to talk about it. And I can carry on this way and I don't have to deal with it. So that's what I did. And it didn't help me, didn't serve any purpose, right? Um, but that's why. And I would have brief moments where I thought to myself, hey, actually, I haven't binged in a little while and I haven't had the need to purge or restrict. I feel okay. I mean, I was on diet pills or I was suppressing my appetite. So I figured out I'm doing okay. I haven't purged or binged in a couple days. So I'm cured. I'm not bulimic anymore. Woohoo! But the truth was down deep. I just didn't want to look at it. So I could not give my mind and my heart and my soul fully to God until the brain fog was gone. So for me, I needed to clear my mind and clear the crap from my brain, literally and spiritually. And when I started to cut out all the plants, less coffee, but even that's reduced in the quantities. But when I cut that out, when I not only went to eating animal meats, not only just chicken wings and chicken breasts, which are fine, but they're not overly filling. When I started to eat beef and lamb, bacon and egg yolks to get all the nutrients I needed, when I started to nourish my body, I couldn't even believe the brain fog was finally gone because I hadn't registered it. I was so used to having it. It took me a couple weeks to go, wait a second. Wow, I remembered this from last week. Holy jeepers, my brain fog has dissipated. And I feel like it's not there at all. Now, I get a bit of sleep fog like we all do when we wake up first thing, but the brain fog is gone. And I have more days and more moments where my fibromyalgia pain, it's there, but it's minimal. And it's like, for me, that's a good day. So today, I keep in our airing cupboard in the bathroom, I have a bag. So when you finish a shampoo bottle or a toilet roll, I chuck that in there. And then once a month, I separate it all out between paper and plastic. I put it out with the recycling. Well, I did that today. And then I emptied out all the small little garbage bins in all the different rooms. It's not a huge thing, but for me, that's a big thing. It's like, oh, wow, I did the sorting. And yesterday I changed our bed sheets, which is maybe not a huge deal, but for me, it's like, wow, I got something done. I feel like I accomplished something. But I do have to be careful because if I do too much, if I was to say, oh, I'm going to Hoover vacuum the house, well, that would be too much. That would be too much pressure on my back. And I would be right back to the beginning. So I'm learning slowly, but I am trying to learn how much I can do and when I need to stop so I don't overdo it. It's a fine line. But if I hadn't listened to my body, if I hadn't listened to God and the Spirit and understood the fact that I needed to eat for nutrition and for health, if I hadn't listened, I never would have gotten rid of the brain fog. I never would have reduced my pain, my inflammation, my chronic irritation in my back. It's there. It will probably always be there. It may go away someday. I don't know. I've only been doing this 2.5 years, and it took several years to get to this point, right? So I'm hoping it'll continue on. But in the meantime, I do have days that are much better. I have moments where I can, walk through the house without my crutches. Awesome. I never thought that would happen. I do have to still use a shower chair and sit when I shower, but I can do it myself. I don't need a care person in every morning to help me. I can get dressed with minimal pain. So those are little things, but they're major things to me. The fact that I had the brain fog lift and that I could have a clear mind and reconnect with God in a deep way, amazing. Because it's helped me to see I don't know what I'm doing, right? I my way doesn't work. But when I trust and I pray and I, lean on God, amazing. And so that for me is the balance and clearly understanding from reading scripture and also just anthropological proof and just the fact that it works for me and it's worked for so many people that God intends for us to eat the animals. For those of you who do believe in God or some sort of a God, Mother Nature, well, the animals were created for us. The seeds, the cereals, the grains, those were there for them, to feed them, mainly those ruminants, right? They could be fully digested, they could be processed and turned into muscle meat and tissue, and of course, help their organs to be healthy and grow and all that. But the plants were created first in order to feed the animals, which came after the plants. We came after the animals. Why? Because that's how it was intended. Now, some plants with seeds, meaning fruits, were available for humans, and at times, at times when meat was scarce or harder to come by, and also in season, and they weren't nearly as sweet as they are today. So, if you lived in a part of the world at a time when fruit might appear, yeah, eat the fruit. If you couldn't find animals for a while, fatten up a little, tide yourself over until you could catch meat again. That's fine. But not eating it like we do today, that's for sure. You know. And again, whether you're somebody who wants to eat it raw, which to me does not appeal, I wouldn't mind trying it just once just to see what it's like, but I don't think I would do well with it simply because I'm not used to it. But for people who do that and enjoy it, fantastic. That's not me, which is also okay. So whether you want your meat cooked, somewhat cooked, or completely raw, go for it. I mean, I would never suggest you eat chicken or pork raw. Salmonella is too high a risk. Please don't do that. Regardless of what some people might say, please don't do that. And I would say probably shouldn't be eating organs raw either, but that's just me. That might be because I gave myself food poisoning by accident last year, and the liver was kept too long in the fridge and just not a good thing. Anyways, that's your deal. If that floats your boat, go ahead. Whatever, honestly, whatever. But whether you want to eat organ meats or not, that is a personal choice. It is not necessary. You'll get everything you need from cooked meats. If you are adventurous and you want to try having some of the organs, go right ahead. Apparently, some of them are really nice. They taste really good when they're cooked, like hypothalamus, heart, kidneys, not too bad. Liver apparently is the funkiest tasting. So if you don't like the funky gamey taste, you probably want to avoid it. I stick to beef, 20% to 23% fat, typically. Sometimes I will get donor meat, which is the one stuff I get is a mix of lamb, mutton, and beef. Also, you can get it where it's lamb meat, and it's delicious, and it's a treat once in a while, right? That's me. I do like sausages sometimes, every once and again, but I always have bacon and yolks and beef mince. So, having said that, I'm going to wrap up here in just a moment. I hope this is helpful. I know I went on a lot about fibromyalgia and the symptoms because, especially if you don't have it, I'm hoping that if you're not the one who struggles with it, it gives you a good idea of what it is and how it can affect people, and that depression and pains everywhere, aches and pains, and it can change. The pain can move from the shoulders one day and it's in your arms the next, or it's in your legs one day and it's in your groin area or your lower back. It can be anywhere and everywhere at the same time. So, and it can come and go. And you can have days where you feel like you can't even move and get out of bed, or you're feeling, such a good day of low level pain that you want to get up, you want to get dressed, you want to maybe do some errands. I was out getting groceries today. You see, you want to run errands, or you want to go out for a coffee with a friend, or, you know, um, and then you can also, even doing very little, you can find that your pain is worse the next day. So, what I find has helped me minimize the pain, honestly, truthfully, is eating a carnivorous diet because it keeps the inflammation down. It keeps my brain clear. The fog is gone. My inflammation is at a minimum. The irritation is fairly minimal. It's kind of always there. My rheumatologist said that my SI joint is inflamed and irritated. And that's something that's very, very difficult to get rid of because where it is in the body, it's just below your lumbar area, which is, if you know, cool. But if you don't know, it's at the bottom of your spine. And then you've got the SI, you got the sacroiliac and the SI joint underneath that. And that's just above your coccyx or your tailbone. And that's, of course, goes down and you got the pelvic bone around it. I'll put up a picture at some point. I'll find a picture. I'm a terrible artist. I have stick figures that nobody can figure out what they are. So, anyways, that pain when you sit, when you get up and stand, when you walk, when you move in any way, when you roll to your side or whatever, that joint is critical. And if it's inflamed, you're going to have pain every time you move, which I do. Sitting on a padded chair helps. Sitting on a comfortable sofa helps. Sitting in a chair that is not hard, like wood, helps. I have to have a chair that's got lower back padding somewhere. Like it can't be one of those chairs with where it's just space because my lower back needs the support and there's still pain. So I'm in aching pain right now in my lower back, but I'm also saying I'll deal with it because it just is. That is just how it goes. And so eating the meat helped me lose 80 pounds of excess weight. That was just adding additional pain on my joints. It was not helpful to the fibro. It was certainly not helping my arthritis or my Raynaud's, right? So when that extra excess weight was gone and the inflammation came down and the irritation came down, I would say I'm probably 80%, 75 to 80% healed from the symptoms of fibromyalgia and chronic musculoskeletal pain through my lower back. I don't know if that last 20 to 25% will happen or not. But again, I've only been eating this way for 2.5 years. I know Professor Bart Kay has talked online about the fact he himself dealt with horrible fibromyalgia for a very long time. And he was keto for a while, and that definitely helped heal him up to about 80%. And then he went carnivorous. And it's only been in the last few years, after 8 years of being carnivorous 95%, that he's closer to feeling 100% healed, if not fully. He did injure his foot last weekend, I understand, from what I can recall from one of his videos. So less the foot injury that's got him in one of those walking casts, moon boots. Less that, he is overall 90% to 95% healed from his symptoms. The thing with fibromyalgia is that it's not cured, but you can be symptom-free, which I'm hoping to get to at some point, but it will probably take several more years for that to happen. In the meantime, while the pain is there, while the lower back is still in pain, like a dull pain throughout, I have found that it's so much easier to live with because my mind is clear, because I'm walking with God. I can feel joy. I can feel gratitude and contentment in spite of whatever physical situation is going on. And that is the greatest and most amazing thing of all. And that's what helped me find balance, where I understand I don't have to save the world and I don't have to fix everything that's out there. That's not my role. Sorry, my dog is getting a bit silly in the background. That is not my job. I had to let go and let God. And when I did, that was when I first had the thought, there was a spirit nudging me going, look at keto, figure out keto. Because I tried paleo for 2 weeks and it was a disaster. Um, and so I listened. You know, you get that nudge where you feel like something's tapping you on the shoulder or kind of nudging you and pushing you forward. I did that. I did that. And I am so thankful. I will never look back. You know, the thing about being stuck in an eating disorder and food addictions, or I would imagine any sort of addiction, is we know we're stuck. We don't want to stay in that place forever. But as bad as it is, it's a comfort and it's hard to get out of. It's not impossible, but it's hard to get out of. And I realized it wasn't until I finally stopped and went, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. It took me finding keto and then carnivore to get the food right. And that's important. Nutrition is key. You know, we have the animals in this world to nourish our bodies as God intended, and maybe occasional seasonal fruit when it's available locally and, you know, as I say, in season, a little of it, but you don't need it. It's not, you don't have to have it. You can choose it if you so wish, right? But it's not required for our bodies to function. But when I got the poisonous food out of my system, I was shocked at how much better I felt. And I realized, wow, what a blessing from God. His animals to nourish my body, which if I had been paying attention years back, would have done the same thing for me. But I wasn't ready. I didn't know, and I wasn't ready to hear that truth. But I'm glad I found it, you know. He wants us to treat our bodies as temples because we host the spirit obviously within us. And it's a sign of respect for God that we look after the bodies we've been given. That doesn't mean we have to go to the gym every day. In fact, too much of that stress is actually going to have the opposite effect on you. So people who go running every single day, unless you're training, you know, in a sport, but even then, if you're going to the gym and you're hitting the treadmill every day and the weights every day, to the point where your adrenals are constantly going, your cortisol is constantly flowing, what happens is you get some people who are doing all this exercise, putting their body under that kind of stress, and yet they're finding, like, say, the weight around the fat around their bellies isn't going anywhere. That's why. You're putting yourself in constant fight or flight mode. Now, this is just what I've learned from watching Professor Bart Kay's videos. He is the expert on this sort of thing. Check out his channel for the scientific evidence as to why this is the case. But yeah, so I didn't have to go to the gym. I didn't have to do what everyone else does. I didn't have to listen to what everyone else says you should eat or what you should do. Just because everyone says it doesn't make it right, doesn't make it so. So I tried it for myself, and cutting out all the plants for me has worked amazingly. It gave me a clear head, but it also helped me get my heart right, get a clear heart, and realize I didn't want to just believe in God. I wanted to walk with him every day. And now that my mind was clear, I was ready to get back to that. And luckily, he didn't give up on me. So for me, the balance is putting God first in my life, because for me, he is the higher power, and he knows everything. And I don't know anything. And I think it says somewhere that the wise person is the one who knows they know nothing. That's me. I want to get that kind of wisdom and not act as if I've sorted it all and I've got it all figured out, because I haven't. I know what has worked for me now, I know that I can be content and joyful and grateful in my life to have food ready at my disposal, whether it's takeaway, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's when we go to the butcher's each month. We have food aplenty and food that is nutritious, that actually nourishes the body, that doesn't leave me feeling hungry half an hour later. Amazing. The plants that humans have sort of adjusted to eating, in that we're not going to die right away if we eat wheat. I mean, unless you're allergic, but it doesn't benefit us in any way. It's full of gluten. It's an inflammatory agent. All seeds and all seeds and nuts and cereals and grains are inflammatory in some way or another, because they were never designed for humans to consume in large quantities, if at all. They were designed for the animals of the planet to consume, because their digestive systems are different than ours. But of course, we humans thought we knew better, and clearly we were wrong. But I'm learning from that. I'm trying to learn from that. I'm learning to go, I've emptied all the garbage cans out and all the sheets have been changed on the beds. I've done enough. I've done enough for the weekend. I can relax and enjoy myself and go read and not feel guilty. And for me, that is balance. Spending time praying, spending time meditating and going through the Bible, that's what I read for encouragement and to strengthen my faith, and praying and talking to God and listening to, maybe nature sounds in the background through YouTube, all those things to help me feel closer to God. When I feel that sense of peace, when I put him first, everything else is not a big deal. Then I feel like, you know what? I don't feel so stressed, because I'm not responsible for the world. And that may seem like a little thing, but sometimes it's those little realizations that make a massive difference. And again, if you're not, someone who believes in God as being the creator and the father and the father of Jesus, find what does help you. Find that higher power that will help you to, realize everybody in the world needs help sometimes. And we cannot do it all by ourselves, even if we think we can. When we've done that, that's when, as humans, we have found ourselves making big mistakes, right? And I include myself, of course, in that. And I'm far from perfect. And I guarantee you, I'm going to make a mistake again, probably as soon as I'm done with this live stream, because I'm not perfect. I'm a human. However, I'm thankful that I have God to rely on, who is my anchor, and wanting to walk with him and keep my mind clear is what motivates me. Wanting to keep my body as free from pain as possible by eliminating or reducing my inflammation and my chronic pain, that's my motivation. Learning to love myself as I've been created, now that I'm healthy, now that I have reached the potential that God, I think, always had for me, I see it as as showing him great respect by taking care of the body he's given me. My personal opinion. That's just me. And not to become vain or obsessed over it, but to be grateful for exactly the way he's made me, because God does not make mistakes. He makes us exactly the way we are meant to be. And whether we have developmental issues, as I say, my older son has autism, very high functioning, but he does have autism. God made him that way for a reason. He sees things in a way that I don't. And it's incredible. It's amazing to have, spiritual talks or just talks in general with him. Our younger son has ADHD and was diagnosed that way at 18, but he's finding routine and habits and patterns as he now lives again in Canada, and he's working as a chef, finding his passion. And that is how he's managing. His mood swings are almost non-existent. It's amazing. But God made him like that for a reason. He's a hands-on learner for a reason. And God does not make mistakes. God does not make mistakes. We do. We all do, but God doesn't. So for me, that is reassuring that when I make a false start or I do something that I later wish I hadn't, you know what? I'm going to. I'm human, but God doesn't. And I believe that when I eat a carnivorous way and I am close to God and I am being spiritual minded and I am praying and I'm walking and I'm eating and nourishing my body, God blesses me by helping me to have less inflammation and pain. You know, it is God. I'm not saying he's like reaching out and it's not like he reaches out an invisible hand and touches me, but he created our bodies to be able to heal themselves if we take care of them. You know, not just physically. Sorry, just a second. Sorry, I had to let the dog out of the room. Sorry for that. It's not just about looking after us physically, but spiritually. And it's not just about, the outside things. I found that when I was able to finally feel like I had reached a point of recovery from bulimia and I stopped being in the habit of binging and purging and restricting and feeling guilty and starting all over, that came when I was starting onto the carnivore diet. And that actually was solidified when I got my relationship back and got it right with God. So for me, those things have to go hand in hand. Whoever and whatever your higher power is can hopefully help you do the same thing. That's why I was sharing. So finding balance. Well, that means for me, when I'm home, I eat the same thing: beef, bacon, egg yolks. Sometimes I'll treat myself to doner kebab meat. Sometimes I might have a bit of sausage or a bit of lamb, depending on the cut and how I've cooked it. But if we go out, I don't insist on the meat being 20% because it's not going to be. It's going to be lean wherever you go. So I'll get a burger or a steak. I try to be a little bit more flexible, realizing, I'm not at home. I can find a bit of balance between higher fat and sometimes eating something leaner. And it doesn't control my mind like it used to. I don't worry about how much have I eaten, how much do I have to get rid of. I don't struggle with that anymore. And so, yes, going carnivore has helped me work towards recovery from my eating disorder. And right here, I'm getting a bit blotchy. That is not because of what I've been eating. That is because I'm confident. I'm in the middle of dumping out oxalates and I'm in perimenopause and my hormones are kind of all over the place right now. So that's what this is. This is not because of eating beef, for anybody who's wondering. So yes, I'm sitting here and I feel aching pain throughout my back, but I can live with it. It is what it is. It's not this sharp pain where I'm constantly feeling like I can't sit up straight. I'm actually learning to hold myself a little bit straighter every day for a little bit longer periods. And the more I do that, the more I'm hoping I can train my back to go back to its original position and posture, which was straight up and down, as opposed to being locked in a bent position. We'll see what happens. But for me, it's learning the balance between trying to do everything all at once on a good day, only to be left with rebound pain and not feeling guilty because I've chosen to do nothing and just relax. So I don't always get it right. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed with guilt and I feel like I've got to clean everything and do everything around the house. That isn't my job. And When I ask for help, my son is helpful and my husband is helpful. So I'm learning how to ask others for help and not do everything by myself, because when I do, I end up getting hurt or I make things worse in the long run. And it's the same way with, you know, trying to do everything by myself instead of letting go and letting God. I don't have control anyways. Control is an illusion. It is a construct of our minds because we don't have control. Most of what happens in the world, we can't control. And so for me, I'm learning to stop controlling everything. Trying to. All right. Well, that is it for me for today, you guys. I'm so glad those of you who popped in, and definitely hope you guys enjoy this if you watch it on the replay. Just want to say thank you. And I'm going to finish off with my mince and yolk song. Again, completely giving full credit to Bart K because it was his steak and egg song that inspired me. So to close off, here we go. Mince and yolks and mince and yolks, that's what I like to eat. And bacon, yolks and mince and yolks and mince, that's what I really enjoy. And bacon. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I will probably be back live next on Monday. Tomorrow we have church, so I won't be live. I will be busy. But take care. Love you guys. Thank you for all of your support and all the best. Hope to see you guys in the next live stream. If not, I'll see you in the next recorded video. Bye for now.